Holding progress bar. There's probably a better name for this, but that's honestly all I got right now. What's up, dogs? TheOdie here, and we are going to make this progress bar. It's something I created in my demo for the haunting of the G. Wilson family, and I figured it'd be pretty neat to show you guys how it's made. So let's do it. So as you guys can see, there's a little bit more involved in this than just one small common event. As I scroll through these 3 common events, feel free to pause the screen or rewind so that you can see it for its fullest. And in here, this is where stuff will occur once it hits certain points in the progress bar. But if you would like to see that for yourself, then play the demo. Okay, plugin over. Now, a couple of things that you guys are going to need beforehand is a couple of pictures, preferably a space bar to tell the players what to do, the progress bar, and the progress bar shadow or outline or whatever you call this. Pretty much the HUD to tell you where the progress bar is at and when it will fill. If you guys are interested in those 3 resources, then check out in the descriptions down below. There is a donation perk for this, where if you donate at least $1, then you could download this file and use it for yourself. But of course, not everyone has $1 to spare, or they just rather make it themselves, so I will briefly describe how it works. Pretty much, you want to create a canvas that is the size of your game. Mine is 1920 by 1080, so this is a 1920 by 1080 canvas. And as for the progress bar itself, you want to make sure that it is easily divisible by 100. And mine in particular is 800 wide. And it doesn't really matter how wide it is, just how tall it is. And you do want to make sure that it is dead center of the screen. The reason for that is because RPG Maker is going to increment 1% of its full scale at a time, so aka it's going to stretch by 8 pixels each time. So if you have a total width that is not a whole number when divided by 100, such as 101, then do know that it won't be perfect as it scales up, and that you will see a little bit of nudging inside of its progress bar. There are ways to cheat that, but I'll let you explore that on your end, because it is quite the math equation, or quite the trial and error. Now with that said, let's get started. So all I did was create an event that's completely empty, and he's my boy Todd the Toaster. And well, we don't have to put anything in him just yet. He's going to be the guy who will turn on the progress bar. And on that note, we're going to need to initialize a progress bar. I'll just toss it in here. So I'll call it progress bar underscore init. Stands for initialize. And we're going to have to create a couple of variables. This one is progress bar. And we're going to set it to 0. So this is pretty much what's going to go from 0 to 100% and slowly stretch our progress bar. Next, I'm going to do some show pictures. I like to keep the number high. This way I know it will overlay any other images that I may decide to appear on screen at any given time throughout this progress. But of course, you can choose whatever number you like. And 90 is going to be that background. And it's okay to have it on upper left, because this one isn't going to move, it's going to stay static. Now we're going to copy, paste, and just one number up, we're going to make the progress bar fill itself. And in case you want to know what it looks like, there it is. And this was what the progress background bar looked like. Pew. And now this one, we actually want it dead center. And we want to put the X at the dead center and the Y at the dead center. So mine is 1920 for the X divided by 2. That is 960. And the Y is 1080 divided by 2. So 540. And we want the scale for the width to be 0. The height can stay 100. And now we're also going to turn on a switch called progress bar. The reason for this switch is because in another common event, this is going to be the main controller of our progress bar. So I'm going to call it progress bar. You can even call it _engine just to remind yourself. And this one will be on auto run because it's going to lock the player in place. If we keep it on parallel process, then the player can still move around. They can enter their menu screen. They can leave the map. And unless that's your intention, you'd probably rather have it on auto run to make sure that the player can't do anything else. Now with that said, let's create the engine. We're going to do a conditional branch, and then we're going to look for the button being triggered, which is OK, actually being pressed, because there is a trigger and we do not want trigger, we want pressed. So as long as the button is held down and pressed, this will take place. OK, and apply. And then on the inside, we are going to increment our progress bar by 1. And to visually show the progress bar making progress, we're actually going to use a script call. And the script call is going to mimic that of a MovePicture. So down in the descriptions, there is this beautiful script call library. Something I did not make. Instead is Archaea and Cathril. Sorry for butchering your name if I did, but it's perhaps the most helpful thing ever. It's not just script calls, it's also useful consoles, quality of life, Visual Stilla, and so on. So don't thank me, thank these two. Anyway, we are going to look for moving pictures. So I'm just going to do Control F, type in picture. Oh wow, there's 250 hits. So let's see if I can do move picture. Aha, here we are. And here it is. So for the most part, you can do either of these two, and I'm just going to grab the first one. Copy. Go back into our game file, script, paste it, and it even tells you what each of those spots that you gotta fill in. So picture ID is 91. Origin 1 because we want dead center. X is going to be a little bit interesting, so I'll do that one a little bit towards the end. Y we know is 540. Scale X will also be interesting, so I'll get back to that one. Scale Y is 100% opacity. I'm going to keep it as 255. Blend mode 0. Frames it takes to move, I'll put this as 1, and for easing, that one is optional, so I can actually delete that completely. Now to get into the interesting ones. First is Scale X, because that one's the most easiest one. I'm gonna hit OK. So we know that progress bar is going from 1 to 100, and that is the scale. So guess what? We can actually just use another script call, which is $gameVariables.value, open parentheses, 1, close parentheses. And now whatever this value is, it'll just insert it here. So whether it's 1, 5, 69, 100, any arbitrary number you can think of. Now the interesting one will be the X. And to be quite honest, it can be quite tricky. What we want to do is start at 960, which is dead center. Then depending on the length of your picture, you want to divide that by 2. So we already know that it's 800. Divided by 2 is 400. So minus 400. And minusing will push it over to the left. Now, we actually want that bar to slide forward as it grows. Because if we don't, then guess what? Because scaling works based on its origin, it's just going to grow from the center out. So we're actually cheating the MovePicture system, or creating an illusion to show that the progress bar is continuing forward. But in reality, it's just growing from the dead center based upon its origin. by using the addition sign, this will move the bar towards the right. And we're going to move it towards the right based on the value of the progress bar. So, -sign gameVariables.value 1. Except we're still not done here, because the progress bar is not moving fast enough. If we just set it right here, then I want you to mathematically think about this. At, say, 50%, then it's just going to be 960, dead center, minus 400, plus 50. Doesn't quite make it. Instead, what we gotta do is nudge it by half of 1% of your progress bar. I'll re-say that because that can be very confusing. My progress bar is 800 wide. 1% of my progress bar is 8 pixels. So because only half of those pixels are growing to the left, we have to push it by half of those pixels to the right to create this illusion. So we need to nudge it by half of 1% of its total times 4. And with that, I will hit OK. And I noticed that it kind of drags over, and I don't like the way that looks. I like to kind of just see everything in one screen without having to scroll. So I'm going to just edit it. Go to the 540, hit enter, and have it on 2 lines. So now it's more compact and easier to read. Alright, we did it. Now the only thing we gotta do next is delete the progress bar when we're done. So in the third one, I'm gonna just go progress bar underscore exit. And it is perhaps the most easiest thing that you can probably guess. It is erase picture 1. Or no, it was 90. And erase picture 91. And we got to turn off that progress bar. And we can OK this. Now, in our boy TheOdie tester, we are going to look for the common event, turn on the initial one, and then in the next one, we need to test conditions to see when the progress bar has made a certain value. I'll show you 2 cases, one when it hits 50 and another when it hits 100. When it hits 100, we'll just be like, oh wait, better yet, job's done. And then exit. And then at 50, we'll just be like, making our way downtown. Except we need to do a little bit more here, because you see, my friends, ... this progress bar will constantly repeat itself. Once it hits 50, we need to tell it to, we've already seen this event, the making our way downtown. So what we're going to need is a conditional branch, and we're going to use self switches. Make sure that's looking for its off, and we actually want it on the inside. And in their case, we actually don't care for this being in here. We can toss it out, and I'll remove the else branch. So also inside here, we're just going to do a self switch. A is on, apply, and here we're going to do a a conditional branch, very similarly, except for it is now B off, and toss it on the inside. Okay, so I know this is confusing, but here, allow me to reiterate. The progress bar is making its progress. It hits 50. Now, cell switch is automatically off. Everything starts by being off. It's going to hit 50. He's going to say, making our way downtown. And then cell switch A will hit. So if, say, the player no longer holds that space button, the progress bar will remain at 50. But hey, cell switch is now on. So it will ignore everything on the inside. And now it's going to say, hey, cell switch is B is off. But we haven't hit 100% yet. So we'll ignore all this. And that's basically how it works. Now, all of the big brain people out there will be like, hey, I don't think you got this done right yet. And that is correct. We don't. Because we actually need to move some things around. When it comes to testing conditions, we need to look for it through a parallel process. So we're going to do copy, paste. And in this page 2, I'm going to delete this progress bar initializer. And in page 1, I'm going to delete these two. And, well, I already used cell switch A and cell switch B. So I guess I'll just use cell switch C. So that it can go on to the next page. And if you don't know your cell switches yet, then guys, I'm sorry to say, but you ain't ready for this tutorial. Learn your cell switches and your conditions. Be a master at it. I have a wonderful tutorial covering all this and emphasizing to be a master at your conditions and switches and variables and all that. Anyway, page 2, trigger, parallel process, and OK. Here we go. Ta-da! Now we did everything we wanted to. Nah, I saw this coming a mile away. I just wanted to show you guys something, and that is the power of autorun. It is a thing that is just way too fast. So what we actually have to do is add a break in our autorun by waiting for a single frame. So now the progress bar will move per frame. See? Per frame. Making our way downtown. Job's done. Oh, isn't that something to see? So, what you can do to slow down your progress bar is just by altering this wait frame timer. And yeah, that will work. It'll create more stability, but there's also a better way. Look how choppy it is. Ugh, isn't that gross? Yeah, that's gross, ain't it? On that note, you'll notice that it overfills, and there is a way to fix that. But first, I'll talk about the smoothing. So for smoothing, whatever you have as your wait frame, you also want to have it in here as your wait frame. So, boom. Much smoother, eh? Yeah, that's much better. And now for the overfill, to fix that, you can just do a conditional branch variable progress bar as long as it's less than or equal to 99. And then you just take everything and shove it on in. Control R. Done. What's that? You want to see it again? Okay. So, in case you're wondering why there's a little bit of a nudge when the moment you hit your spacebar, it actually has to do with the RPG Maker engine. But don't worry, the player will not see it. So, right there, that was the nudge. The reason for it is because built into the test program, as long as you press and hold an OK input, so spacebar, enter, X, it actually speeds through the engine. This way you could kind of skip your cutscenes. And everything moves in 2 times speed, pretty much. Now, another thing you guys probably noticed is that right when it starts, you get a little bit of glitching that you saw there. You saw the bar just jump over to the left side. We can fix that too by going in here into our init, and right where we have it centered, we're actually going to subtract the x by half of the progress bar. So minus 400, which is 560. So now it actually has a good starting point, or a sensible starting point, or starting at the same point. See? Ta-da! All better. The other thing you probably notice is that you're skipping those response because you're holding that space bar. To fix that one, where those goals are, or those conditions are being met, you just want to add a small wait timer. 4 frames. Sounds pretty good to me. Though do note that as long as the player is holding the space bar, it can skip it. So, like so, it still skips it. But hey, it gives you a better chance to respond. But of course, you could adjust the wait timer to be even longer, like 20 frames. Then the player will notice that the bar is no longer making progress. Or if you're in some sort of cutscene, maybe throwing a balloon icon with a wait till completion, that can also do the job. So that tells me that, hey, maybe I should stop, or a cutscene's happening, but as you notice, the progress bar was still moving. If you want to freeze the progress bar as the player is holding that space button, then the simple solution there is to just throw in a switch. Say freeze progress. And then you also want to turn it off at the end. And then inside the common event where the engine is occurring, just on the very top, conditional branch. As long as freeze progress is off, then continue to chug along. So, Control R. Aha, progress bar has stopped. Job's done. Now, another thing you'll probably notice is that at the very beginning, when I showed you my file, there is a little bit of discrepancy, which uses progress bar frame I incrementing. Well, this is just something I did to instead of the wait timer. It's very synonymous. It's just that a parallel process moves 1 frame at a time, and it's kind of inside a certain cutscene to where I require a parallel process instead of an auto run. Just be warned that with auto runs, they move infinitely times faster than a parallel process. So for parallel process, it refreshes every frame, and you can create a custom timer with just a variable, and that's essentially what's happening here. It's just a more complicated way of doing this simple wait. Holding progress bar. that really can't be what this is called. But now you know how to make one. If you enjoyed the video, a like would be very much appreciated, but even more so if you go ahead and check out the game page, or even play the game demo itself. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you could think of any other tutorials that you would like to see, let me know down in the comments and I'll be glad to show you guys. Till next one, later. This setting, and it is based by maps. So if I create a copy of my existing maps and keep it in a folder called demo, it would mean having to go back into this and altering it. And I was like, nah, I'm too lazy for that. So I'm just copying the entire game folder instead.